Sudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 14, The Three Modes of Material Nature, 14.1. Sri Bhagwan Uvacha Param Bhuya Paravakshyami Jnanam Jnanam Uttamam Yat Yatva Muhavya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Gataha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection."
14.2. Idam Jnanam Upashritya Mama Sadhanam Agatah Saved Api No Apyajante Pralayana Vyatyanti Cha.
By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution.
Mamayo 14.3. Mam Yonir Mahad Brahma Tasmin Garbhim Tyamyaham Sambhava Sarva Bhutanam Tato Bhavati Bharata.
The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata.
14.4. Sarvayonesu Konteya Mrityu Sambhavanti Yaham Tasman Brahma Mahad Yonir Aham Bija Pradapita.
It should be understood by all species of life, O son of Kunti. Sorry, I start again. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father.
14.5. Sattvam Rajas Tamam Itama Iti Guna Prakrita Sambhava Nipyanti Mahabaho Dehe Dehinam Avayayam.
Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes.
14.6. Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakasham Anamyayam Sukha Sangena Bandhanti Jnanim Sangena Chanaga.
O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge.
14.7. Rajo Ragatmakam Vidhi Krishna Sangha Samudvabam Tan Nividyanti Kaunteya Karam Sangena Dehinam.
The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions.
14.8. Tamata Ajnanam Jam Vidhi, sorry, Tamata Ajnanajam Vidhi Mohanam Sarvadehinam Pramadalasya Nirdhyabhis Tan Nibdanti Bharata.
O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul.
14.9. Sattvam Sukhe Sanjayanti Rajah Karmani Bharata Jnanam Avritya tu Tamaha Pramade Sanjayatyate.
O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance, covering one's knowledge, binds one to madness.
14.10. Rajas Tamascha Tabibhuya सत्वं भवति भारत रजसत्वं तमश्च एव तमसत्वं रजस्तथा.
Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance. O son of Bharata, sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy.
14.11 सर्वदेवर्षु देहे अस्मि प्रकाश उपजायते ज्ञानं यदा तदा विदयत् विवृद्धं सत्त्वम् इति युत.
The manifestations of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge.
14.12 लोभ प्रवृत्तर आरंभ कर्मण अस्मस्पृहा रजसी एतानि जायन्ते विवृद्ध भारतर्षभ.
O chief of the Bhartas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop.
14.13 अप्रकाशो अप्रवृत्ति च प्रमादो मोह एव च तमस्य एतानि जयन्ते विवृद्धि कुरु नन्दन.
When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested.
14.14 यदा सत्त्वे प्रवरुद्धे तु प्रलयं यति देह भरत तदोत्पानं विदिदं लोकन अमलं प्रतिपादयते.
When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages.
14.15 रजसि प्रलयं गत्वा कर्मसङ्गेषु जयते तथा प्रलीनास्तामसि मुक्ता योनिषु जायते.
When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth amongst those engaged in fruitive activities, and when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom.
14.16 कर्मणः सुकृतस्य सात्विकं निर्मलं फलं रजस्तु फलं दुःखं अज्ञानं तमस्य फलम्.
The result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness.
14.17 सत्त्वत् संजयते ज्ञानं रजसो लोभ एव च प्रमादमोहो तमसो भवतो अज्ञानम् एव च.
From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance develops foolishness, madness, and illusion.
14.18 उदर्वं गच्छन्ति सत्त्वास्था मध्य तिष्ठन्ति राजस जज्ञगुणावृत्तिस्था अधो गच्छन्ति तमस.
Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish planets.
14.19 नान्यं गुणेभ्यो कर्तरं यदा द्रष्टन्तु पश्यन्ति गुणेभ्यश्च प्रणम्येति मद अभवंसो अधिज्ञायते.
When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature.
14.20 Gunan etan atyantitrena dehi deha samudvavam janam mrityu jara dukhe vimukto amrutam asante.
When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life.
14.21 Arjun Vacha कैलेङ्गे त्रीन् गुणान् ईतेन अतीतो भवति प्रभो किम् आचरणे कथं च इतं स त्रीन् गुणान् अतिव्रतेते.
Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature?
14.22 to 25 Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prakasham cha pravittam cha moham eva cha pandava न देवेस्ति सम्प्रवृत्तानि न निवृत्तानि काङ्क्षति उदासेन वदो उदासेन वदिशो न गुणैर्यो न विचलयते गुणावर्तिन्त इति एवं यो वृत्तिस्ते नेङ्गते समा दुःख सुख स्वस्थ समालोक्स्तं स काञ्चन तुल्य प्रियो अप्रियो धीरः तुल्य निन्दात्मसंस्तुति मान अपमानस्य तुल्यस्य तुल्यमित्रारिपक्षयो सर्वालम्ब प्रत्यगी गुणातीतश्च युज्यते.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Bandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities, such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature.
14.26 मामचयो अविव्यचारेण भक्तियोगेन सेवते सवेते गुणान् सम्प्रीत्यन्तान् ब्रह्मभायो कल्पते.
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of nature, material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman.
14.27 Brahmano hi pratyas sorry Brahmano hi pratishthanam amritasvasya cha swastasya dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha.
And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness.
Om Tat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upnidas Brahma Vidyam Yogestra Sri Krishna Arjun Samvade Gunatya Vibha Yoga Nama Dasya Dasopadasya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry.
Krishna, thank you, Chaya Mataji, for the Sanskrit recitation, and Jai Shri Mataji for the English translation. English translation. So I just need to make sure everyone's muted. Jai Prabhu, you're muted. Yes, Pramataji. Okay. There's a lot of background noise coming there. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen and share. Is it this one? Bear with me. Just trying to find the right one. Just bear with me while I do that. 14.9, yes. All right. Dear devotees, welcome to today's session. I'll start off by reciting the Mangala Charanam prayers to invoke auspiciousness for today's discussion. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadesha Tarine. So in text number 6, 7, and 8, the Lord has been describing the characteristics of the three modes of nature. He's described the modes of goodness, the mode of passion, and yesterday's verse was the mode of ignorance. So in today's verse, verse number 9, Krishna summarizes the characteristics of these three gunas, modes of material nature. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati raja karmani bharata jnanam avritya tu tamaha pramadha sanjayati uta. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. Passion conditions one to fruit of actions. And ignorance, covering one's knowledge, binds one to madness. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. A person in the mode of goodness is satisfied by his work or intellectual pursuit, just as a philosopher, scientist, or educator may be engaged in a particular field of knowledge and may be satisfied in that way. A man in the mode of passion may be engaged in fruitive activity. He owns as much as he can and spends for good causes. Sometimes he tries to open hospitals, gives to charity institutions, etc. These are some signs of one in the mode of passion. And the mode of ignorance covers knowledge. In the mode of ignorance, whatever one does is neither good for him nor for anyone. So we'll try to discuss a bit further. So we'll see, or we notice in these words, in this verse, there are some common words used by the Lord. Krishna says, goodness conditions one to happiness. Passion conditions one to fruit of activity, action. And ignorance covers one's knowledge, binds one to madness. So there are some common words here. Conditions, binds. And in the 5th verse, Lord Krishna says that this material nature consists of the 3 modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these 3 modes. So being in the material world means, besides for the Lord and the pure devotees, being in the material world means being conditioned by the 3 modes of material life. Material life means conditioned life. And when one comes under this conditioned state, we become bound to the material world. And in this way, we find ourselves circumambulating life after life after life after life in this material body. All because of the conditioning of the material modes. And we'll discuss this a bit more, how one becomes conditioned to happiness, how one becomes conditioned to fruit of action, and how one becomes bound to madness. Therefore, those on the spiritual path, like ourselves, to become free of material conditioned life means we have to become free from the modes of nature so that we can become situated on the spiritual platform. And 2 things are required. One is an understanding of how we are being conditioned. And secondly, through what actions can one become free or aloof from the modes of material nature. This is the knowledge that we are going to receive in this chapter and in subsequent chapters, like chapter 16 and 17. There's also lots of description about this. How to recognize the modes of nature. So this word guna, we have sattva guna, raja guna, tama guna. One meaning of the word guna is ropes. And ropes are used for binding. So in one lecture on the 4th verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada has stated, so Krishna is advising here, evam jatva kritam karma purvai api mumukshubhi. What Krishna said, that the karma should be divided according to the person, quality of the person. There are 3 qualities, sattvagun, rajagun, tamagun of the material world. Gunamai mama, daivi esha gunamai mama maya. You know the verse. So gunamai, just let me mute. So gunamai, guna means the 3 qualities, sattvagun, rajagun, tamagun. And guna, another means rope. Just like strong rope. 3 ropes. You take 3 ropes and you wind it. It becomes very strong. This is also gunamai. So Krishna advised Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. So Guna Karma Vibhagasha, Guna quality is there. Now you act to the quality, don't be idle. So we know there's ropes, all of us have experienced there's different types of ropes. The strongest ropes, some of the time we used to play tug of war with those. Those ropes are really strong. You have 3 ropes which are tied together. So these gunas, they are considered to be ropes that tie the living entity. And it's very difficult to come out of it. Very, very difficult. Oh, sorry, what happened? Yeah. Okay. So how do we become conditioned? We know there are the three modes of material nature. So in life, in our daily activities, we live in a certain place. We eat certain foods. We associate with certain people. We watch certain things and screens and activities. We read certain types of material, and then we live through certain times of the day. So all of these different actions or activities in life, they all come together to situate us in a certain mode. Like as we understand that living in the country is in the mode of goodness. Living in the city is the mode of passion. And living in very degraded conditions, that's in the mode of ignorance. We also know food. Krishna describes later on in the Bhagavad Gita, certain types of food are in the mode of goodness. Certain types of food are in the mode of passion. Certain types of food are in the mode of ignorance. Then the company we keep, the people we associate with. Everyone is situated in a different modes. Sometimes we associate with people in the mode of goodness. Sometimes we may have to associate with people in the mode of passion. And sometimes we associate with people in the mode of ignorance. According to our association, we take on a particular mode. Then watching, these eyes are always open, looking at different things. What we see also affects the modes it places us in. And the same with sound. There's sattvic sound, there is rajasic sound, and there's tamasic sound. So what we listen to also plays a role in situating us in a certain mode. What we read, reading means taking in words or material into one's consciousness. What we read affects what mode we are in. And then we have the times of the day. We know the morning is the time of goodness. During the day, midday, and before and after a few hours, that's mode of passion. And then in the night, there's the mode of ignorance. So through these different aspects of our life, we become conditioned. So a devotee or a practitioner of spiritual life is always conscious that they have to be situated above the modes of nature. And if they have to be in the mode of nature, at least they should be in the mode of goodness. Being situated in any lower mode than the mode of goodness is very, very difficult to maintain one's spiritual consciousness. One will get carried away through the other aspects of consciousness. So therefore, those are serious about their spiritual life. Prabhupada, you said, whenever someone cooks, especially they cook grains, the consciousness of the cook goes into the food. So those who are sattvic, they are very, very conscious of what foods they eat, who is cooking the food. And they make sure that the food is also, the devotees, the food is always offered to Krishna. Then it becomes prasad. Srila Prabhupada said in one lecture, I'll just read it to you. This is a lecture on the Sri Ishopanishad, mantra number 7. And in that lecture, Srila Prabhupada says, so one has to come therefore to the platform of goodness in this material world. If one does not come to the platform of goodness, the platform of goodness is the Brahmanical qualification that we are preaching. Our Krishna consciousness movement is to bring some men on the platform of goodness. The world requires it now. The world is in need of some brahmanas, qualified brahmanas. Not that you are being trained up to become qualified brahmanas. So be always careful that you may not contract the quality of passion and ignorance. So Prabhupada is saying here, one who is serious about spiritual life, they are extremely careful about not coming under the influence of the mode of passion and ignorance. This means living a very sattvic life, living a life of goodness. Once Srila Prabhupada was in Mayapur, and when Prabhupada was touring the grounds of his temple Mayapur, which is our world headquarters, he noticed some bad smell coming from the toilets. And when Prabhupada observed that, he chastised the devotees. He said, you all are not feeling very uncomfortable with the state of the toilets. It means you are not in the mode of goodness. If you were in the mode of goodness, you will start to feel very uncomfortable in such a dirty place. And you would make sure that the place is cleaned, the toilet is cleaned. And Prabhupada chastised him. He said, raise your consciousness. Because if you were in the mode of goodness, you would be very uncomfortable in an unclean place. Prabhupada said, Brahmana means clean. Brahmana, who is always situated in the mode of goodness, can not tolerate any dirt, any clutter. Everything has to be clean. Therefore, when you go to our ISKCON temples, you go to the deity kitchen, you go everywhere, you will see that cleanliness. There's a saying, cleanliness is next to godliness. Before you can come in contact with the supremely pure Krishna, we have to be pure. And Prabhupada says, Brahmana means a place for everything and everything in its place. No untidiness, no clutter. If one is the mode of goodness, the moment you go into a place where there's clutter, there's dirt, you feel very uncomfortable in it. That is one test about how purified we're becoming in our consciousness. So this is very, very important. Very, very important. Prabhupada says, never allow yourselves to become contaminated by the mode of passion and ignorance. So we must know what it means to be in the mode of goodness. And all aspects of our life needs to be aligned. Therefore, in ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada says, there are two paths, the path of Pancharitriki Marg and Bhagavat Marg. Both run in parallel like the two lines of two tracks of a railway line. They run in parallel. The Pancharitriki Marg means deity worship, which trains one in cleanliness and developing the Brahmanical qualities, the qualities of goodness. And then the Bhagavat Marg are the principles of devotion, the chanting of Hare Krishna, the studying of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. That's internally clean and externally clean. Prabhupada says, clean, no dirt. Must be inside clean, outside clean. This is what we should strive for. And we can know how we are advancing in our spiritual lives, how we are coming to the mode of goodness. This is a one very strong indicator. Cleanliness, internal cleanliness and external cleanliness and tidiness. Very important. The Srimad Bhagavatam also gives examples of how even one in the mode of goodness can fall down. And the two typical examples are Ajamil and King Puranjan. So we all know the story of Ajamil, who is described in Canto 6, chapters 1, 2, 3, I think, and 4 of Canto 6. So I'll briefly describe how Ajamil fell down, because this is a lesson to us of how the modes of nature acts and how we can fall down. So we shall read from text 56. In the beginning, this Brahmana named Ajamil studied all the Vedic literatures. He was a reservoir of good character, good conduct, and good qualities. Firmly established in executing all the Vedic injunctions, he was very mild and gentle, and he kept his mind and senses under control. Furthermore, he was always truthful. He knew how to chant the Vedic mantras, and he was also very pure. Ajamil was very respectful to his spiritual master, the fire gods, guests, and the elderly members of the household. Indeed, he was free from false prestige. He was upright, benevolent to all living entities, and well behaved. He would never speak nonsense or envy everyone. So, all of these qualities of Ajamil described here demonstrate that he was situated in the mode of goodness. He was on the Brahmanical platform. But then let's see what happened to Ajamil. Once this Brahman Ajamil, following the order of his father, went to the forest to collect fruit, flowers, and two kinds of grass called samit and kusha. On the way home, he came upon a Shudra, a very lusty, fourth-class man who was shamelessly embracing and kissing a prostitute. The Shudra was smiling, singing, and enjoying as if it were proper behavior. Both the Shudra and the prostitute were drunk. The prostitute's eyes were rolling in intoxication, and her dress had become loose. Such was the condition in which Ajamil saw them. The Shudra, his arm decorated with turmeric powder, was embracing the prostitute when Ajamil saw her. The dormant, lusty desires in his heart awakened, and in illusion he fell under her control. As far as possible, he patiently tried to remember the instructions of the Shastras, not even to see a woman. With the help of this knowledge and his intellect, he tried to control his lusty desires, but because of the force of Cupid within his heart, he failed to control his mind. So simply by seeing this prostitute and the Shudra, his mind became contaminated. He became overcome with the mode of passion. And no matter how much he tried to remember the instructions of the Shastra, no matter how much he tried to draw upon his knowledge and intellect, he could not control his lusty desires. In the same way that the sun and moon are eclipsed by a low planet, the Brahman lost all sense. Taking advantage of the situation, he always thought of the prostitute, and within a short time he took her as a servant in his house and abandoned all the regulative principles of a Brahmana. He couldn't forget this woman. He brought her into his house as a servant. Thus Ajamil began spending whatever money he had inherited from his father to satisfy the prostitute with various material presentations, that she would remain pleased with him. He gave up all his Brahmanical activities to satisfy the prostitute. Because his intelligence was pierced by the lustful glance of the prostitute, the victimized Brahmana Ajamil engaged in sinful acts in association. He even gave up the company of his very beautiful young wife, who came from a very respectable Brahmana family. So he had a wife, a young, beautiful wife, a respectable wife from a Brahmana family. But because he had become contaminated by the mode of passion, someone who was in the mode of goodness no longer appealed to him. Although born of a Brahmana family, this rascal, bereft of intelligence because of the prostitute's association, earned money somehow or the other, regardless of whether properly or improperly, and used it to maintain the prostitute's sons and daughters. This Brahmana irresponsibly spent his long lifetime transgressing all the rules and regulations of the Holy Scripture, living extravagantly and eating food prepared by a prostitute. Therefore, he is full of sins, he is unclean, and he is addicted to forbidden activities. This man, Ajamil, did not undergo atonement. Therefore, because of his sinful life, he must take him to the presence of Yamaraj for punishment. Therefore, according to the extent of his sinful activities, he will be punished and thus purified. So this is how Ajamil fell down due to the influence of the modes of nature, a contaminated mind. He lost. But eventually there was a good ending to the story. The prelude to the story, which was told by Shukadev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, that Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadev Goswami, how can those who are steeped in sinful activities and overcome by the modes of passion and ignorance become free? And then in response, Shukadev Goswami tells the story of Ajamil. And most of us know the story of Ajamil, how it had a nice ending. He named one of his sons Narayan. And although he was calling at the time of his death his son Narayan, but he got the benefit of unconsciously, unknowingly chanting the name of the Lord. And this he was elevated. How are we doing for time? Oh, it's already 1:30. Okay, I'll move on. I move on from the slides. I'll just read one thing we will do during chapter 14 is not only talk about how we become conditioned and affected, but also how we become free from the modes. Yesterday we spoke about how hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Krishna Katha, one gradually becomes free from the modes of material nature, one becomes situated in the mode of goodness, and then one eventually transcends the modes of nature and comes to the platform of Sudasattva, transcendental goodness. I will now conclude with reading one verse from the 7th canto, 15th chapter, the 25th verse, which gives another very, very powerful means by which one can become free from the modes of material nature. Rajastamascha sattvena sattvam chapasa menacha etat sarvam garo bhaktya purashohi anjasa jayat. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. One must conquer the modes of passion and ignorance by developing the mode of goodness. And then one must become detached from the mode of goodness by promoting oneself to the platform of Sudasattva, which is the mode of transcendental goodness. All of this can be automatically done if one engages in the service of the spiritual master with faith and devotion. In this way, one can conquer the influence of the modes of nature. Srila Prabhupada's purport to this verse is wonderful, and I'll read that also. Srila Prabhupada writes, just by treating the root cause of an ailment, one can conquer all bodily pains and sufferings. Similarly, if one is devoted and faithful to the spiritual master, he can conquer the influence of Sattva Gun, Rajagun, and Tamagun very easily. Yogis and Gyanis practice in many ways to conquer the senses, but the Bhakta immediately attains the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the mercy of the spiritual master. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. If the spiritual master is favorably inclined, one naturally receives the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, one immediately becomes transcendental, conquering all of the influences of Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun within this material world. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Sa Gunan Samatityaitam, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. If one is a pure devotee, acting under the directions of the Guru, one easily gets the mercy of the Supreme Lord, and thus becomes immediately situated on the transcendental platform. This is explained in the next verse. So yeah, very simple but very powerful formula is being given. How to overcome the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Here it is said that if one surrenders to Sri Guru and one serves Sri Guru with heart and soul, eh, always trying to act for the pleasure of Guru, then the Guru automatically becomes pleased with the disciple. And when Guru becomes pleased with the disciple, automatically Krishna becomes pleased. And Krishna is ready to bestow all mercy on such a jiva. And when Krishna bestows his mercy on the jiva, then the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are completely eradicated. And we see how Srila Prabhupada gave this formula so strongly in ISKCON. In the early morning, the devotees sing the Guru Vastakam, the 8 stanzas in glorification of the Guru. Then, after the greetings of the deities, one does Guru Puja. One worships the Guru. And throughout the day, the disciple is always offering obeisances to the Guru, either mentally or physically, and serving the Guru either through his physical form or through his instructions, his Vani or his Vapu. And in this way, one becomes free and transcends the modes of material nature. So I'll stop here. There were a few other things, but I think I always like to leave time for reflections, comments, and questions. So if there's any questions, comments, or reflections, dear devotees, you can please speak or raise your hand.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, so the link to what we watch and what where we live.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So in terms of what we watch and linked to what you've just talked about, Ajamil, as well as I'm thinking of Vrindavan Thakur. So all propensities and lusty desires, do they always come to surface when we are watching, say, movies or that's quite evident, isn't it?
Yeah, it contributes. It's not the sole factor, but certainly it contributes to situate us in a certain mode. Sometimes it's so powerful that it overcomes one, as we see in the example of Ajamil. But sometimes it just goes into one's consciousness and just lowers that consciousness from the mode of goodness to the lower modes. It just enters, you see this violence and fighting and murdering and all sorts of things we witness. They enter our consciousness and they bring that consciousness down.
So like in the case of Vrindavan Thakur, he obviously blinded himself because the propensities, the sinful propensities were coming back.
Yes.
And so for us, the best way, like you were saying, is Krishna Katha and chanting and all that helps us overcome.
Yeah, we will describe many means. So yesterday's class, we described Krishna Katha. Today, we describe surrender to the Guru. And in a future class, there's all the other methods of transcending the modes of nature will be discussed by the other devotees and the verses.
Sorry, Prabhuji. I missed yesterday's class. Sorry, Prabhuji. But and then linked to where we live.
Yes.
Is it actually your consciousness that is important, or where we live physically is important?
Where we live is physical. We all know if we move from a very crowded, noisy, hectic place, or we go into the countryside, it has automatically an effect of making us feeling calmer, peaceful,
Yes.
more focused.
Yes.
But recently, I had a personal experience at home. We did a Maha cleanup of our home, vacuumed and cleaned and everything, every bit of dirt we can find.
Mhm.
And the effect on my consciousness was really profound.
Yes.
I felt it. I really felt it, that this clean atmosphere, it has a profound effect on your consciousness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the
I
way
think
we live
clutter.
and where we live definitely has an impact, Mataji.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Really nice class. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Mataji.
when somebody is in mode of ignorance most of the time, which some people are, it's
Yes.
very difficult to bring them to understand that this is not the way, or
Yes.
how to come down to the mode of patience or to the mode of goodness eventually.
Yes.
So, how do we do that? Or we leave them? I don't know whether it's up to, because some people they cannot think rationally to see themselves that what they are doing is not correct. So we know that what they are doing is not on the correct path. So how do we correct them? How do we bring them to the mode of patience at least, and then to goodness, Prabhuji?
It's very difficult, Puja Mataji. In one sense, it's very difficult unless they are receptive to Krishna consciousness in the form of Krishna Prasad, the holy name, Krishna Katha,
Mm.
and so on. It'll be very difficult for them to come to the modes of. They'll have to firstly come to the mode of passion, then mode of goodness. The first Prabhupada said the first principle is to come to the mode of goodness. And it's a complete change in how they live, how they think. But one thing we know for sure, as Prabhupada said when he first went to America, he went to the place which was steeped in the mode of ignorance and passion. And Prabhupada simply did the simple method of chanting Hare Krishna, giving the hippies Krishna Prasadam, and speaking Krishna Katha. He changed their consciousness. They say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And Srila Prabhupada demonstrated just through the simple processes of Harinam Sankirtan, Bhagavat Shravanam, and Krishna Prasadam, Bhagavat and Harinam. Then they can come to the mode of goodness and even transcend it. That's the potency of the Krishna consciousness process. If they are receptive to all of this, Krishna Prasadam, hearing Krishna Katha, and engaging in chanting of the Hare Krishna, they can. Otherwise, very difficult.
Yes.
Does that answer your question, Mataji?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. As you said, sometimes it can be very difficult, which we have found in the family, I'm trying to say, very
Yeah.
difficult to bring them out of what they are. They
Yes.
are good people, understanding, but not in much into coming out of what they are doing. So,
Yes.
very difficult. Thank you.
Very true. Hare Krishna. So there's some questions are coming. There was a question, but it seems to have disappeared by Dev Kishan. Oh, it's here. It's here. How Dev Kishan Prabhu asks, Hare Krishna, how do we get from goodness to the transcendental stage? By practicing Krishna conscious activities, three of which I've just mentioned, Dev Kishan Prabhu. Goodness is in the mode, still in the mode, but by practicing Krishna consciousness, mainly eating Krishna Prasad, associating with devotees, chanting the holy name, and hearing Krishna Katha, and serving the spiritual master in all of these activities, one will transcend the mode of goodness even. We've got a comment here by Divya Gorangi Mataji. Thank you so much for explaining the verse so thoroughly, and as 7:15:25 as a formula for crossing the three mode serving and following instructions of spiritual master by pleasing Guru. We get his mercy and thus Krishna is pleased with us. Also, hence we can thus transcend the modes. Yes, Mataji. Bhakti Yoga is so beautiful. Srila Prabhupada has given us this cyclic succession and the process works. Yes, we all have experience of that. Then we've got a Question from Santosh Mataji. Generally speaking, many of us drift into all three modes at various times and circumstances and place rather than being categorized into a particular mode. What are your thoughts on this reality? Yes, Mataji, I was going to read something in this respect, spoken by Vishnava Chakravarti Thakur. And Vishnava Chakravarti Thakur explains there's two types of bhakti, anishta bhakti and anishtita bhakti or anishtita bhakti and nishtita bhakti, meaning fixed bhakti and wavering bhakti. And he says there are 5 symptoms that demonstrate we are on the level of anishtita bhakti. That means wavering bhakti. But he assures us in his writings that we will come to a stage, and that is the stage of bhava, where we will transcend the 3 modes of material nature and the 5 symptoms which demonstrates that we are still affected by the modes of material nature. I'll share the slides with us. You all can read it by yourself. Those will disappear. Those will disappear. So we should not be discouraged. We should be confident that we are on the right path and we are on the right process. We are in, as yesterday we described, we are in the boat. We are not in the water. And we are in the boat, although we may be rocked. We will cross over. We should be confident that this will happen and not be too disturbed. This is just a function of our condition. As you rightly identified, we may sometimes move from one mode to the other, but there will come a time where we reach a certain stage in our bhakti where it will not be like that. We won't be rocked in the boat anymore. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Can I ask you just a quick question, please,
Sure.
regarding this, my question earlier on. Should we feel bad, or should I feel bad if I'm not progressing in the right direction, but still drifting into all these 3 different modes? And if it's not happening as quickly as I would expect it to happen, despite the chanting, despite the reading, despite doing the kirtan and all this, and somehow I feel that, I'm not achieving the level of progress that I would like to achieve. So should one feel guilty or bad about it?
No. On Friday last week, when we had our Nectar of Instruction class, I read one beautiful verse from the 11th canto, where Krishna says, I'll paraphrase what Krishna tells Uddhava, but Krishna says that a devotee should never become discouraged or feel discouraged. A devotee should always be happy, because Krishna wants to see happy. And even if one is influenced by the mode of passions, even if one slips, one should not take it very seriously. One should be confident that if you are sincere and you're applying yourself to the process, the results will come. It requires some patience, but the results will be there. We should always obviously be introspective to see what we are doing wrong and to see how we can address it and correct it. But it should not allow us to become discouraged. Krishna himself tells that to Uddhava. He doesn't like to see his devotees discouraged. They should just be happy and continue and have faith that in time all of this will change and you'll be rightly situated.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the positivity. Thank you.
I'll try and see if I can share that verse with you all on the WhatsApp group also.
Oh,
so
that would be lovely. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful class, Prabhuji. We need more discussion on this chapter. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Chandra Chaitanya Prabhu. When I see you, always think of a person in the mode of goodness or transcendental goodness.
I wish that was true, Prabhu.
Well, that's what I observe, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Jolly Mataji.
So I'm interested in the cooking part of and preparing food.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if you're in an undesirable mode, and you cook the food, and the person who you offer it to, or the people eating it, surely is the person cooking the food in that mode would be affected more than the one that's eating it, no?
No, it's the other way around. Prabhupada says the consciousness of the cook goes into the food. All right. If you got a devotee, an advanced devotee cooking for you, and then you eat that food, then you are going to make lots of advancement. But if you got someone who is passionate and in the mode of ignorance, they cooking, their consciousness enters that food. Therefore, Prabhupada says a devotee should try not to eat in restaurants. Because when we eat in the restaurant, we do not know what the consciousness of the cooks are. And when we take that food, that'll enter into our consciousness. We do not know if they clean. Some of them go to the bathroom, they do not even bath, they do not even wash, and it affects us. It does affect us.
But who knows that this doesn't happen in the places that we expect it to happen?
Like what? I don't understand what you mean. Can you explain a bit further?
Like in the temple or at your home. I mean, it doesn't have to be a restaurant, surely. It can happen in your home or elsewhere.
In your home, you know pretty well the consciousness of the people around you because you live with them. You should have a pretty good idea of their consciousness. And then as far as the temple is concerned, generally in ISKCON temples, most of the time Brahmanas cook the food. Well, at least for Krishna and the Mahaprasharam we get, they all cooked by Brahmanas. That means they are following the principles nicely, and the devotees, they select the cooks quite carefully. So from that perspective, we can have a degree of, and if one's consciousness is very tuned in, now we all have example of this. If you eat from a person who's not in right consciousness, you will feel it. You will definitely, you can just feel how your consciousness has gone out of sync. Because when one is in the mode of goodness, it's very subtle, the modes of nature. They're very subtle, but we'll certainly feel it. We'll perceive it. Once there was one story, once Srila Prabhupada went into some life member's house in a hill station. They invited Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. So they cooked, they had the cooks cook, and then they had this table. They had this, what they call it, Susan, lazy Susan, where you can spin the plate and then everybody dips and takes. That's not the Vaishnava way of serving. But anyway, the devotees ate. And next morning around 5 o'clock, Prabhupada rang his bell. And then the servant came running into the room, and Srila Prabhupada says, "Do you hear that?" And the devotee said, "No, I didn't hear that." Prabhupada said, "You can't hear? You can't hear that the devotees are snoring?" He says, "One day they came and they ate in this place and they can't get up for Mangala Arati. Let's pack our bags and go." And Prabhupada packed his bags and they left. So it is very subtle. One has to be conscious and one has to be cautious.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna, Divya Gaurangi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhuji, thank you so much for a wonderful class. It's given a very good understanding. I had one thing in my mind that related to this verse. Does the mind also play a role in transcending the modes? Because I was thinking that mind is our enemy or friend both. If controlled, it's our friend. And I was thinking that the modes they will affect us if we are in the wrong if the mind is not occupied, right? Because if we are performing bhakti yoga and like say our morning sadhana and during the day hearing chanting, so it's like if mind is kept occupied, mind will not do other wrong activities. So is that why this process works? Because the choices we make in life will form the habits, right? So we will make right choices if our consciousness is good. We are on the right track. And that can happen by purifying by our sadhana, chanting, hearing, associating with devotees, like how we are doing now, listening to the class. So, does the mind also play a role, Prabhuji, in the modes?
Definitely, there are three aspects to conditioned life. One is the effect of the three modes of nature. Secondly is the effect of the mind. And three is the effect of the false ego. All of them combined to situate us in a certain conditional state of existence. And all of them, it's like an interdependent factors are acting. The modes of nature, like say, the whole Vedic scriptures tell us we have to break free from the effects and the control of the mind. That's what we have to do. If one is situated in the mode of goodness or above the mode of goodness, that is far easier to do. To be conscious of the effects of the mind and to separate oneself. But when one is situated in the mode of passion and ignorance, that covering is so great that even the perception of how one is affected by the mind, and even the ability to break off the free from the mind is very difficult because of the modes of nature. So they're all combined together, affect the living entity. You have rightly identified that the mind also certainly plays a very significant part, as Krishna's described so many times in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. But the ability to control the mind and to be reflective on the impact of the mind is certainly affected by the modes of nature that one is being influenced by.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhuji. That was very, very nice explanation. Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Any other questions, comments, or reflections? Does it all make sense?
Hare
Does it all?
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Sandeep Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my humble obeisances, Prabhuji.
Please accept mine. Oh,
Prabhuji, one maybe a silly question, but I always felt that why it is convenient to go into the mode of darkness, tamaguna, like it is easy to oversleep. It is easy to think negative sometimes.
Yes.
And why it takes effort to do things that bring us in the mode of goodness? Is it by design? Is it? I just fail to understand. Maybe it is Maya.
It's a good question. It's always easier to find to drift towards the mode of ignorance and to situate ourselves there. The mode of ignorance is very covering. It's very powerful, and the nature of the material world, especially the environment in Kali Yuga. In other yugas, the drift towards a mode of goodness was far more natural and easy. But in Kali Yuga, the drift towards a mode of ignorance is far easier. So the fact that we live in Kali Yuga, Sandeep Prabhu, makes that state of existence in the mode of ignorance just easier and more palatable, I think. Whereas in Satya Yuga, it wouldn't have been like that. It would have been naturally towards the mode of goodness. So that's one thought that comes to my mind. And just the environment, the whole atmosphere of Kali Yuga, it's just so much steeped in the mode of passion and ignorance. Does that satisfy
Yes.
you, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, it's quite a fair and powerful point. It's clear. It's very clear.
Hare Krishna. Okay, devotees, if there's no other questions or comments or reflections, we shall stop here. All glories to your service of constantly coming together to read and discuss and promote Bhagavad Gita. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Krishna,
Hare
thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhu.
you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Wonderful
Jai, all
class.
glories
Thank
to
you.
you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.